Okay, well, this is Woods Houghton with Eddy County Extension Office again, and that was another phone call about the tremendous number of moths that we have in town and around town, and they seem to be principally along the river and waterways right now. Those are noctuid moths. There's 47 different species categorized for Eddy County of noctuids, and so which one it is, I'm not sure. I haven't keyed them out, but they all behave about the same, and they're all the same. There's 4 different genera that those could be, and but most of them are in the same genera. So you'll find them around, kick up bushes, and everybody's saying where they came from. Well, we had a mild winter this year, and like any year we have mild winters, we have a lot of insects that overwinter. And usually what would happen is probably 90% of the moths that are eggs die. And we only have to deal with about 10% that survive. And well, this year probably 90% survived and 10% died. So we got a lot more moths than we had before. And you'll find them, the name noctuid means they travel at night. So you don't usually see them in the daytime unless you scare them up out of the vent of your pickup or you harass them or something, get them up from where they're roosting during the daytime. But they fly at night. They'd like to ride the cold air drainage because it's heavier, denser air, and so you'll find them down closer to the river and down in arroyo bottoms and that type of thing. And if you don't want them in your house, your best bet is to set up a trap and pull them away from your house. And you can do that with light, because they will go to light. They like the ultraviolet light. You can use an ultraviolet light with electrocutor grid and set that 100 feet from your house, out where you want the moths to go, not where you don't want them to go. Because if you put them next to the door of the house, all the moths will come to the door. And then you'll let them in. And then you'll be mad because you got to swat them, or vacuum them, or something to get rid of them. Or they come land in your iced tea while you're watching TV or something, and they don't taste very good. Anyway, so try to get them outside, try to get them to electrocuted grids. One thing with the grids is they will attract skunks, because skunks like to come along and eat those dead bodies. Love those barbecued ribs. And so the other way is by putting a light over a pail of water. And a lot of times moths will eventually fall under the pail of water. And you can catch them that way. Put a little bit of soap in the water. That way the water goes right to the scales on their wings, and they can't crawl up and dry off and fly off. So just a little bit of ivory soap, not very much, will break the surface tension of that water enough that they'll soak in and drown. And you can use an ordinary white light, or you can use an UV light. The other item, and you can put a yellow light bulb on your porch light, and that should repel moths, or not repel them, but not be as attractive to moths as white light. But it is attractive to other insects. And yellow is an attractive color for flies. Yellow is an attractive color for some other insects. So you may be trading one pest for another. And so easiest is, and then reduce the number of lights you have. Don't turn them on unless you need them. And invariably, I'll be welding at night, and the moths will start flying into my welding arc. That kills them pretty good too. So that's another way to electrocute them, but it's time consuming. So do the things that you need to do. It's this, like all things, will pass. It may be 6 to 8 weeks, or maybe an all summer issue. One of the things that has some people concerned is the newspaper said they come from cutworms. These are not the same cutworms that we saw in the alfalfa 2 years ago. These are a different worm, and these appear as an immature. They're laid as eggs on plants. They mature as caterpillars. They're usually the black spiky caterpillars you see crawling around eating vegetation. And then when the daytime gets shorter together, they dig in the hole in the soil and they pupate, and they spend the winter in the soil. and they just like a butterfly, or they'll pupate, and then they come out and about this time of year as a moth, and they're just looking to mate and lay eggs and start the cycle all over again. So that's the moth situation. Meanwhile, we've talked a little bit about planting asparagus and onions, and we're going to go over to a friend's house, and we're going to plant a few asparaguses and a few onions. He unfortunately is going to be out of town, so we're going to do it by ourselves. So come on and let's go. And I would have a very happy. Well, and I'm going to go plant some asparagus and onions and show how people how to do that.
Okay.
Okay. I should be back in about an hour.
All right. We'll see you then.
Have you heard anything on my pickup?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Call out woods and see if my truck's ready.
Okay.
Well, just a reminder, it's April and May, so you don't need to be watering a lot right now. A lot of people never change their sprinkler settings, and we want them to water a little bit in the spring, a lot in the summer, and a little bit in the fall. And my contemporary, my predecessor, was Richard G. Merrick. That's the Extension Center's named after him. He's was a World War II hero. He was Extension agent before the war, took time out to be an officer in the Army, served in Europe, received the Bronze Star, came back and served 32 years as county extension agent in Eddy County. So, longtime county agent. We're coming up on our 100th anniversary of county agents in Eddy County. First county agent came May 1st of 1915. And that may be the day I retire, I don't know. So let's go plant asparagus. Well, as I told you that my truck is being repaired, and my secretary, who's very good at taking care of things like that and helping me out get those things done, is checking on it. So we're going to take Old Yeller. And Old Yeller is this was my dad's pickup. I inherited it from my dad. It's an 83 Chevrolet. He bought it new, and I'm refurbishing it. I'm stripping it all down. That's what I do for a hobby. That's my hobby. Some people garden for a hobby, and I help them. I rebuild old pickups, and I've done a 53. I got a 65, this 83, and that's what I do for a hobby. So she's not in the best of condition on the outside, but the motor and transmission is prime. So let's go. Here, it starts really nice. My good friend Jerry Owen is one who helped me get her running this night. She really sounds good, doesn't she? Let's go plant some asparagus. Okay. Book has a lot of history. My dad and I put every dent in her deer hunting. She's never been in an accident with another vehicle, but she did have a few accidents with trees while we were deer hunting. And it's just something, you know, it doesn't get the best fuel mileage in the world, but you know, it's interesting. My 53 gets 15 miles to a gallon. My 65 gets 15 miles to a gallon. My 83 gets 15 miles to a gallon. You know, you'd think we'd improve over time, but we don't. We just add more things to them, so probably more than what we were before. So, one of the things I'm noticing, and we can kind of stop as we drive through here, but you see on this pecan tree here, see all those dead branches out there on the edges? That's zinc and magnesium deficiency. That pecan tree, if it gets some zinc and magnesium, on it and a little bit of nitrogen and some fertilizer, that tree would look as nice as the tree right across the road here. And it's amazing how much those trees will come out. But as you see those trees dying back from the top, the leaves are real small, not very big. That's usually magnesium and zinc deficiency. Sometimes it's water deficiency, which is going to be a major issue this year. We have, have a water problem, and really, if we could get people to water right, we wouldn't have to have rationing. Just be honest with you. But people water too much, and that's one of the big problems, or too little. I see both extremes. I very seldom see landscape being watered correctly for its conditions and whatnot. It's not that hard, but it does take some education and some training and some learning. Everybody calls me up and says, well, how long should I water my lawn? I don't know. Because I don't know what your soil type is. I don't know what kind of lawn you have. I don't know what your output of your sprinklers are. I don't know what the weather's going to be like. And all those things influence how you water your lawn. Sands, you have to water more often, but not as much. Clays, you put more water on them, and you don't have to water them very often. I water my yard at home once every 2 weeks. But I water for a long period of time. But it's a clay soil, and it soaks that water up, and it does well. Some of the yards over in the La Huerta area are maybe watered more often because they have a sandy soil. But the big thing is, and a lot of people have gone to automated sprinkler systems. That will save you a lot of work. It makes water irrigation much more efficient, but it still needs maintenance. You need to go out there and make sure that when the water comes on, all the sprinklers are coming on, that you don't have one that's clogged up, you don't have one that's the head's damaged and it's spraying water up in the air, that type of thing. So it's important to do that at least once or twice a year. And then the other thing that I tell people to do is save your catfish cans, or your cat cans, or tuna fish cans, or I had one doctor that took pill bottles and hot glued nails on the end so he could put them between his sprinklers. And as long as they're the same size diameter and same depth, put them between your sprinklers and see if you got good coverage. There's a formula that we can use. You don't need to do all that. For professional landscapes like golf courses and city parks, we'll run a formula through there and calculate the irrigation efficiency. And a good golf course will be between 87 and 90% uniformity in irrigation. I've seen some home systems that were as low as 40%. So they're not very uniform, and they don't do well. So we're going to a gardener's house that he's going to let me plant some asparagus in his house with his yard, and he was kind enough to invite me to do this. I hope the asparagus isn't too old. We've had it for a while because we were going to do this program a number of weeks ago. But try to keep them moist and try to keep them taken care of. So we'll see what happens. Here's the asparagus, and we'll get out here and we'll show you which way the crown goes and how it goes and everything, and it's in bundles, and it's still moist, so it's probably still good. And this is the crown, and these are the roots. One of the things you want to make sure you do is you plant them with the roots down and the crown's up, and believe it, you can plant them the other way and they will grow. It just takes a little longer, but believe it or not, people do that a lot. I've watched people plant them upside down, and that's one of the things that happens. So we'll go out here and we'll plant some of this. These asparagus crowns are 2 years old, so they should spear this year. They may not spear till next year. It's one of those perennial crops, and you harvest them when you get the spears. So let's go out here and plant a few. See my good leather strap there. It's an old belt. Hello, Marilyn. We're going to plant some asparagus over. Yeah, I'm going to plant some asparagus over here in Bobby's garden. Okay? Don't call the police. No. Yeah, he knows, but he doesn't know we're doing it today. So that's my wife telling me I caught a gopher in my field. Set gopher traps last night. So here, what I've had him do, because he had some disease problems in his garden. This garden has been gardened. We talk about sustainable agriculture. This garden has been gardened by his father. It's been a garden for well over 50 years, and we started to show some disease problems. So we got some plastic and put over the soil and let it heat up the soil and try to solve some of those disease problems. And it's interesting, he got some black plastic and he got some clear plastic, and I told him the clear plastic actually cost him more, and I told him that the clear plastic would be warmer than the dark plastic. I should have brought a thermometer, a soil thermometer with me, but I was actually able to prove that to him, that the clear plastic actually gets hotter in the soil than the black plastic does. And I always love going around these old gardens and look at that old hinge gate. That's a handcrafted, hand-forged hook, and I like, that's my other hobby, is blacksmithing. This garden's been here for quite a while. This is a great old tiller. That's a Troy-built tiller. I don't know how old it is, but it still runs, it still works, and he lends it to me to use on some other gardens. One of the things when a lot of people store their stuff outdoors, and he did the right thing here. He's got a cover on it, and he's actually got a hole at the bottom so it goes over his can, so his lid, so it doesn't blow around. But you don't want to get moisture into your carburetor. You don't want to get moisture into your oil pan, into your crankcase. One of the first things you do whenever you start up a small engine, whether it be your weed eater, well, two-cycle weed eater, you don't have to worry about it, but your lawnmower, just check the oil. And here, it's over here on the side, and this one probably is old enough it doesn't have a dipstick, I bet, but it might. Yeah, it does. Pull that out, look at it, make sure it's full, see if it looks clean or not. And that one's looking a little bit dirty. Probably time to change it. I like to change my oil at first of every season, that way I know I got good fresh clean oil in it and whatnot. If it's been sitting over the winter, you want to if you did not put Sta-Bil into your gas, you want to get rid of that old gas. If you added Sta-Bil to it, it's no big deal, but if you didn't, you want to get rid of that gas and put in fresh gas. Check the oil, check the gas. I always pull the spark plug, make sure the spark plug's clean, put it together, and it will usually start right up. And but the main thing is either put it in the garage or cover it up so that it doesn't get water into that crankcase and into the carburetor. The old steel barrels that you don't see anymore, And of course he's got a compost pile going over here, and he's starting to compost things. The plastic sacks there are stuff to put in the top of the compost pile, and that compost is probably the one thing that you can do to New Mexico soil and improve it 1,000-fold in a few years is to compost and add compost to your soil. I'm just the more I see of it, the more I believe that composting is just an essential part of soil health and keeping the soils going well. So over here we planted some onions earlier. These let them go a little bit too long because they're starting to flower on top. It's time to pick them when they're flowering. You don't want them to flower because they'll make the onion bitter. So we'll plant a few more onions here too to show you how to plant onions. But let's go back here to the asparagus. Asparagus is a fern, and it's one of the few edible ferns that we actually eat. And this asparagus plant is amazing because the asparagus he's got here is at least 40 years old, because he says it was growing there when he was a kid, and he's older than I am. That's hard to believe that there's somebody older than I am, but there is. And, you know, he's older than dirt, but he says, and then when his father got sick, he said, we didn't water the garden, we didn't take care of it, we didn't do anything. It laid dormant for about 6 years. So this asparagus survived 6 years without any water. Asparagus is an extremely salt tolerant plant, so it does really well on odorous water. About the only thing that does well on odorous water. And that and seashore pastorium, which is a salt grass. And you know, but it's a salt tolerant plant. When I was a kid growing up, the way we weeded asparagus was we made ice cream. And the old homemade ice cream where you take brine salt and crank the crank, and as kids we thought that was great. We liked making herbicide because we'd eat the ice cream and throw the salt water on the asparagus to weed the asparagus and get rid of all the weeds. So when I was a kid, no matter where you went in New Mexico, asparagus grew wild along the irrigation ditches, whether it was La Huerta, down here at Loving, Fort Sumner, Socorro, Albuquerque, Las Cruces. Every ditch had asparagus growing on it. And we just go down and harvest the spears off that asparagus. Sometimes there's a fight to see who got down there first. Everybody had their little favorite asparagus patch. But as we've modernized, we've had to cement ditches in, and we've had to get more efficient with our water utilization, those have disappeared. So now you got to plant it in your garden. It's really pretty simple. We're going to open up our bag here. Open up our crown package here, and we'll take the rubber bands off there. Now there's a couple ways to do this, and there's one little crown that's come loose there. And one of the things I like doing, and you can do it on some soils, is get the soil wet, and I'll just lay the crown in my hand and stick my hand in the ground and make a muddy mess out of my arm and my shirt. And my wife doesn't like that, but it cleans up, you know. But we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 crowns here, and I'm not going to give them all those because I'm going to take a few of these home and plant in my garden. So, but we will give them 2 new plants. And these, like I said, here's the roots. And you look at these roots, you want to make sure, well, see, we separated that crown out. And you can divide these crowns as your plants start getting old and dense. You can actually dig them up and divide them and plant them. You know, we can actually make another crown just by simply breaking that off, and then we got another plant. Okay, it's really pretty simple. Take a hole. You know, you dig a hole. Make sure you put the crown goes up, the roots go down. I like to spread them out a little bit. Sometimes I'll take a clod like that and put in there and kind of put my roots around that clod. And we just break the soil up. Notice I'm not putting any more amendments. I'm not putting any fancy soils, because eventually it's got to live in New Mexico soil. And you know, and I want to bring that all the way up to that top of that crown. I'd like to put the crown just a little bit under the soil, so that you look at right there, and I'll use my native grass as a mulch on top. And that's all there is to it. I'm going to take and do that again. I'm going to go right over the top of the one I just put in there. Might make this hole just a little bit deeper. And that is asparagus roots from this plant over here. So we're going to go ahead and plant a Jersey variety. I like to spread those roots out again. Take my little clot. I'm just going to spread those roots out. Put my little clod right there like that. Break that soil up around there like that. And there we go. And then we're going to go get some water and soak this really good. And want to make sure we got those crowns completely in the ground. I like to plant that first one. We didn't plant quite deep enough, but and we'll plant them another one over here. Now these. And again, we're just going to spread those roots out, bring that soil in around here. And get that covered. Okay. Back in here with the peat moss, and put a little more moisture in there again, so that I can take them and plant them at my house. We'll go get some water in just a second. If you walk on the plastic, you'll punch holes in it, so don't walk on the plastic. Especially thin plastic. You know, I see a lot of people laying hoses around, and one of the things I like to use is a diffuser like that. That keeps you from eroding the soil, keeps the water going into a lot of different places. I'm just going to lay that there and let that sit for a while. It's hard to find metal diffusers. They're all plastic nowadays. I'm squeezing the water out of the sack so it doesn't make a mess on my pickup seat. Okay, and then I'll put it back in there. I'm not advertising for Walmart. That's my Walmart weed bag. And then we're going to go over here and plant some onions. We'll let that run for a little bit. You know, and I like to plant. I start planting onions, and I like to plant a few onions, then plant a few more about a week later, and then a few more about a week later. That way you're continually bringing onions off the garden. Whereas if you plant them all at once or all ready at once, and I can't eat onions that much. My wife doesn't want me around if I do. So we're gonna go right in here where he's got his onion bed. And there's two ways to plant onions. You can plant onions directly from seed, which I've done, and I usually will start them indoors, and or you can buy onion slips. And what I did is I bought onion slips here, and let me see if I can find it. It's interesting in that people often don't know how to plant an onion. Okay, this is the roots and that's the crown, and this is the bulb. So you want to plant it with the roots down and the crown up. You can plant it sideways and the roots will go down and the crown will go up, but you have an ugly looking onion. It'll be deformed, you know. So, and you can plant it that way, but it won't live. You know, with the roots up and the crown down. I mean, it's like you know, they just won't make it. You got to plant them with the roots down, and a lot of people don't realize the little leafy thing up here on top, that's the top and that's the roots. And what I usually do is I just open up a trench with my shovel. And I just open it up about like that, you know. And you don't have to plant these things real deep. Now the rule of thumb is always with seeds, you plant a seed 4 times the width of the seed, this being the width. That's how deep you plant them. But these aren't seeds, these are bulbs, okay? So you just need to plant them a little bit, just like that. I go about 6 inches, plant the next one. Go about 6, now plant the next one. And give them a little bit of space. That one's a little bit wet. And if a little bit sticks out, that's no big deal, because it's going to put out a leaf and start growing here pretty quick. And in just about, got that row done. Now we're going to do the second row. I'm going to do it the same way. Just crack the soil. My shovel. That's probably deeper than I need to go, but I'm just going to. Sometimes you got to look pretty careful to see which end goes which. That little guy, we'll put him right there. He went way too deep. Okay, that one we started to plant upside down. But I like doing onion slips. I have better luck with onion slips than I do with dressed seed. Onion seeds are real small. About that far apart. That's all there is to the onion. Then if you want, you know, you can see that he used his pecan leaves from last year, and he put them on his bed here as a mulch to help keep some of that moisture in, and that works well. These onions are definitely getting too old. I'll have to tell him he needs to pull his onions up. They're time to eat. So otherwise you'll get the flowers on top, and when they start bolting like that, the onion will get pithy inside. And but if you want to collect onion seeds, let them flower and cut the tops off, and you got onion seeds. Okay, let's go get the water and bring it over here. Called but we have good quality city water. It does have some fluorides in it, which is one thing, but we do have good quality water. And we'll just put a little moisture on top of it. So one of the things that I'm really advocating, and we got some publications and how-to books. If I stole them from Texas Extension Service. That's one of the neat things about Extension Service is there's one in every state, and some states have more resources than others, and Texas has a lot more money than we do, a lot more people, and they've got a really good publication on rainwater harvesting. And we think about all the roofs that we got, you know, right here. We got the roof on that house, we got a roof on a shop and a barn, and you can get 1 inch of moisture off a 1/4 inch rain and roughly 100 square feet of space. So it doesn't take a lot of roof to collect a lot of rainwater, and that's really good for your garden. It's soft water, it's pure water. It'll leach out salts, where the city water, and as good as it is, has some things already dissolved in it, and it's just like a pickup truck. You know, you can carry a half ton in a half ton pickup, but if you already got 500 pounds, you can only pick up 500 more pounds. And the same thing's true with water. If it can carry so much, and when it gets so full it can't hold anymore, it won't leach out any salts. And you see that when you put sugar in your tea. You put, that tea is just polluted water, and you put sugar in there, and you eventually get so much sugar it's super saturated, and it starts precipitating out at the bottom of the glass. So, okay, that looks like that's watered good enough for now. I'll put a shovel back where you can find it, although I'd like to take this one home. It's just a nice shovel. And we turn the water off. So you want to water preferably in the morning, because if you water at night you get cool, dark, moist conditions, and funguses like cool, dark, moist conditions. So you want to water in the morning. You don't want to water too late in the day, because you'll lose water to evaporation, especially if you're using a sprinkler. If you're putting it on the ground, like with a diffuser, it's not nearly as much. There's a simple, and we're going to build one here on this garden. We'll probably do a program on it. There's a simple drip irrigation system you can do with PVC pipe and a drill. It doesn't take very long to assemble it, and you can put that down in your rows, and then you can water subsurface, and you don't have to worry about evaporation. And it's cheap, it's simple, it's easy to do. I like it a lot better than soaker hoses, because soaker hoses put out a lot in one place and not very much in another, and they clog up with calcium carbonate. So with that, let's go eat some lunch, dig up some onions, put on our hamburger. Fresh onions are always better than what you get in the store. Go ahead, and they're starting to flower, just pop that up a little bit. And that's not a very big onion for starting to flower. This must be one of those good salad onions. Yep, that's a good onion, but it's not very big. It should be, what you usually do when you look for onions, see when to harvest them, the bulb should be starting to come up out of the soil. You should be able to see the top of the bulb. So I don't know why he's starting to flower and he's not getting good bulb size. That may be a fertility issue. He's got good color, got good size, but it is starting to flower. And I'm going to pick those flowers off. And see what happens. But that is a good onion. That is a sweet onion. watch it. Every once in a while she does that just to say hello. The thing about these old trucks is they don't have a lot of the conveniences that newer trucks have. And I had a 67 Chevrolet that I sold to a professor at New Mexico State. And he told me, he says, yeah, the first time he went to a drive-through window and ordered a meal, and it was a standard, it had 4 speeds on the floor. He said, I suddenly realized that there's no cup holder. There's no place to put the cup, and you can't shift and drive all at the same time. The one thing I miss about this truck is there's no clock that works. I got an old quartz clock over here, but it quit working at least 20 years ago. And so I keep saying I'm going to get me a little digital clock to put in here so I know that's time to go eat lunch. I don't miss very many meals, in case you noticed that. I mean, it was pretty good. It had good flavor to it. It's about lunchtime. And, you know, we do have nutrition programs at the Extension Office and nutrition information as well as farming and how to preserve your fruits and vegetables and so that you can enjoy them through the winter time and after the harvest. So all that is part of agriculture. Remember, if you eat, you're involved in agriculture. So a lot of people seem to forget that. So, all right. Put my seatbelt on so that I get a ticket. It's safer. See you later. This must be one of those good salad onions. Yep, that's a good onion.
Amazing.
You